One of the most unlikeliest group of heroes take their final bow in one of the most unexpected trilogies in the MCU. When one of their own faces a mortal injury, it's up to Star-Lord to lead and rally his fellow Guardians to save their friend and put a stop to the threat of a mad scientist with a god complex. Wes and Alexis go to nowhere to join the galactic ragtag band of misfits in their final adventure together in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 on View the Right Thing.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of View the Right Thing. Got another theatrical movie. So with me, as always, is Alexis. Hi, Alexis.
Hello, Wes.
How are you?
I am pretty good.
Yeah?
I'm pretty good, yeah.
Anything great going on in your world?
Yes, actually, the theater company I'm a part of is performing in the Hollywood Fringe Festival coming up.
Oh, when is that?
So that is in June. We have a variety of dates. I know there's the 6th, I was not prepared for this question.
Ha-ha.
There's the 6th, the 11th, the 17th, the 21st, and the 26th, I believe.
All right, can I ask you another question you're not prepared for?
Yeah.
How does somebody get tickets to this?
Oh, well, you can go to this fancy website called fringefest.org, I believe. I'm going to pull that website up right now. Oh boy.
Killing time,
It's
waiting for
I got it. It's hollywoodfringe.org/9747.
All right.
And our show is called Inappropriate. And a lot of it is inappropriate, and it's really fun.
Awesome.
Yes.
Well, that's great.
How are you? What's going on with you?
I'm doing all right. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything going on with me. I feel like Des and I have had like a lot of traveling already this year. And then we had people come into town, and then Desi left town multiple times. Then I had surgery. So it's just been kind of weird, busy time. But I think things are starting to calm down as we get close to summer.
Oh, well, that's good.
That's exciting. And lots of movies coming out that I'm very excited for.
Yes.
And comic books. Yay, comic books.
Speaking of comic books, wasn't this past Saturday Free Comic Book Day?
It was. I went and got a bunch of free comic books.
Sweet. Awesome.
Support your local comic store, everyone.
Absolutely.
I actually, our friend Nick Eversman, I had been talking to him for weeks. I was like, hey, I really want to take your kids to Free Comic Book Day. Because they're like 7 and 5, I think.
Wow.
And so I was like, I really want to take them. So I like kept checking in because they play baseball too. They play Little League. And I knew they had games on Saturdays. I was like, is there a game this Saturday? Maybe we could go after we'll come and watch the game, and then we'll go to the comic store after or something. And it turns out they didn't have a game. So we just met at the comic book store, and they had a blast. And some of the books that were there, the writers and artists were there to sign the books.
Oh,
and
cool.
so the kids got that. And then one of the tables, the artists were like, hey, we're doing free drawings for kids. And they were like, who's your favorite character? And so like Lucas said, Spider-Man. So the guy drew Spider-Man for him. And then the woman that was talking to Lorelai had said Wonder Woman was her favorite character. And that artist wrote and drew and inked, I think, and colored her own book. That's going to be a Wonder Woman book that comes out in the fall. And so she drew a custom like Wonder Woman for Lorelai. It was really, really cute. So.
Oh, that's so sweet.
I was like, yes.
What a wonderful first experience for them.
Yeah, I was like, I'm the good uncle. So, yeah. So that was Free Comic Book Day was a blast. And I got some books. Desi got some books.
Sweet.
Yeah, so pretty exciting.
Pretty exciting. Speaking of comic books,
Yeah.
this movie is based off of a comic book.
It is. It is based off of based off a bunch of comic books. Okay, well let's talk. We haven't done trailers, I feel like, in a while, so let's talk trailers real quick.
Were you able to take notes this time?
I did. I left my phone with the screen brightness turned all the way down because I keep forgetting my notepad just for the trailers. Then I put my phone away when the trailers were done, and it never came out again. Well, until after the movie.
Right.
So the first one is one I think we've mentioned before that I'm super freaking excited about, which is Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1. Are you a Mission Impossible fan?
I have seen them all.
That's a pretty non-committal answer.
I will say they are very fun. They're fun to watch. I'm not a huge action movie fan unless there's comedy thrown in.
Yeah, not a lot of comedy at Mission Impossible.
Yeah,
I love the series. I used to watch the show with my dad, and yeah, so this is one I'm very excited about. They shot both this one and Part 2 back to back. So Part 1 comes out this year, Part 2 comes out next year. So I'm very excited to see how a 2-part Mission Impossible is going to play out.
Yeah.
I'm just going to guess.
Do you think this is going to be it?
Maybe, but probably not. I can't imagine Tom Cruise just being like, I don't know, this is such a good moneymaker for him. And like, it's an opportunity for him to do any crazy, stupid thing that he thinks of. So...
This is true because he does his own stunts, doesn't he?
He does his own stunts, and he owns the production company. So,
okay.
He can kind of jump out of however many airplanes he wants to jump out of, or be attached to the outside of them. They've done some like little teases where they've done like almost like little video diaries from like the top of an airplane, like that kind of thing. And and they're always like, Tom, we got to get this shot. We're burning daylight. And then he like jumps off of a plane or something. It's pretty crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm not that kind of actor.
Yeah, I mean, you might be if they paid you enough.
That's fair. I would need some really, really fantastic fail-safe.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, well, he spent a lot of time like learning how to do things correctly. He's not the kind of guy who like cuts corners. He's he's famously like very strict about people following all of the rules. So
well, okay, that's good.
Yeah. I worked with somebody who's done several movies with him, and been like he was the Steadicam guy for a bunch of his movies, and he was like, wow. I asked him, I was like, what's it like working with Tom Cruise? And he's like, it's amazing. He's really great. He's very generous. He's very kind. And you don't have to direct him. Like he knows exactly what he's supposed to do. He always hits his mark, and you can completely trust him. It's like, wow, that's quite the compliment. That's pretty amazing.
I mean, that means the world in a production.
Yeah.
When someone has all their ducks in a row.
Yep.
I've worked with people who didn't have their ducks in a row, and it was a little painful.
Oh yeah, that's tough. You're trying to remember.
They fix it in post.
I worked with an actor once, and he had a thing he used to say. What did he say? He's like, I'm an actor. I have 3 tasks, 3 jobs, and it's show up on time, know my lines, don't bump into furniture. And I was like, okay,
that's fair.
Fair enough. So Mission Impossible. Next up we got was the Hunger Games prequel. Was it of Songbirds and Snakes?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how I feel about it. I don't know if I care. Like, is this going to be a thing to make us feel sympathy for Donald Sutherland's character?
Is that the goal?
And that's what I'm wondering. Is like is this like another like Maleficent where it's like she's the villain, but she's really a good guy?
No.
This is
I
how
did
they
not
turn bad.
catch that it was Donald Sutherland's character when he was younger.
Yeah, so it's Coriolanus Snow or whatever his name is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I really like the girl that's in it. I think it's Rachel Ziegler, who is in
Oh.
West Side Story. She's gonna be Snow White. Yeah, so I like her an awful lot, but like if this is a love story between her and that guy, yeah, I don't know. I just yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm very excited about it, but I wasn't really taken by the series in general, so
Yeah. I mean, I like the Battle Royale movie concept, so, I'll see it and probably have a mildly good time, but I don't know. It feels a little Twilight-y, this prequel, for some reason. It's just got the stench of Twilight on it somehow.
hey, Twilight did pretty well.
Twilight did great, but, there's a certain quality to those films,
Yeah.
Yeah, anyways, that's Hunger Games. The next one we got, I had not actually seen the trailer for yet. I had seen that it was out, but I had not watched it yet. Gran Turismo, based on the video game Gran Turismo.
Oh, yeah. I hadn't even heard about it.
Yeah, I was a little blown away by, one, how good this movie looked, and especially for being based on a video game, but they also said it was based on or inspired by a true story, and that kind of threw me off a little bit because I've never heard of this story. It was basically this young guy wishes he could be a racer but doesn't have the money to like get into it.
Yeah.
And so he just plays video game racing, Gran Turismo, and then he wins a contest driving simulators, and it allows him to actually get involved in the racing. I never heard that story, so
Yeah.
I'm
I
curious.
hope they'll go more into it.
Yeah, I'm curious how true of a story it is.
Well, they say based on, so it could be like loosely based.
Yeah. We know people played Gran Turismo. That's it.
And there have been people in the past who've wanted to become race car drivers.
Yep. The age-old story.
Yeah. It is a very clever storyline, though.
Yeah, it's got a little bit of a Flight of the Navigator vibe to it.
Yeah.
Only maybe not as silly, but... And probably better
If
effects.
only. Yeah. That does make me wonder. Like, I have thought in the past, all these video games that are like shooter video games, what if it's like a new way to teach people how to like do some sort of like secret distanced warfare?
Oh, have you seen Gamer?
No.
Okay, so I think it's Gerard Butler is in this movie called Gamer, and the concept is that he's like almost like an avatar, but he's a real person, and he's controlled by somebody who's playing the game, and it's a first-person shooter thing.
Oh.
Yeah, it was the first. I think it. Apologies if I'm not correct, but I think it was the first feature film shot on a red camera.
Oh.
It was like a big deal.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay, this sounds interesting. I'll have to see that.
It's not very good. Just know that going in. It's not that good. But, you're a consumer of art and entertainment, so, why not watch it, right?
Yeah.
Next up we had the sequel to Dune. Dune 2, Dune Harder.
Is that what it's called?
No, it's getting Dunier. No, I don't know what it's called. Dune 2 Back to Arrakis? I don't know. How do you feel about Dune?
I enjoyed the first half. Is it a two-parter? I didn't know the story previously before I saw it.
Yeah.
And it was cinematically beautiful.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
It was long. It was definitely a longer film.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued to watch the surfing.
The worm surfing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Have you seen the other Dune movies?
No, I've only seen the first part of this one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So famously, listeners of the podcast will know, I cannot stand Dune. Check out our Dune and Hodorowski's Dune episode that I did with Steve. It is. I just can't get into it. I just find it so boring. Like you talk about, like it's long. Like I was like, we have to be near the end of this movie, and I paused it, and we were like half an hour in or something, or 40 minutes in. I was just like, these movies, it's great that there's an audience for them, that people love the story and stuff. For whatever reason, I just can't get into it. I just can't.
That's totally fair.
But I've watched all of them. I've watched, the David Lynch. I've watched the documentary. I've watched the Sci-Fi Channel mini series that they did, and I've seen part 1 of this. I keep giving it a chance. And
you're hoping,
and I'll eventually see Dune 2, but unless you make it your request, I probably won't want to do it for the podcast. But you have the right.
Okay,
you have the right to request it if you really want it.
I don't know.
Watch nothing else come out that month. That's like the only movie that comes out.
We'll be forced. I mean, last time I didn't have to see the first one in the theater. I was able to watch it at home.
Same, yeah.
And we could pause it and step away. I think we watched the first half of it, and I'm like, can we take a break?
Yeah. I actually kind of think we ended up taking a break too, but maybe more because like something came up while we were watching it, and we were like, oh, we'll come back to this. I think maybe that happened. But yeah. Next up, we got Fast 10. Fasten your seatbelts. I think that's supposed to be what it is. Fast 10.
Oh, that's clever.
Which I think it sounds like we're probably gonna visit on the podcast. It'll be the first Fast and the Furious movie that we've talked about on this podcast.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
There are like 500 of them.
Yeah, well, 9. Actually, there's actually 10 if you count Hobbs and Shaw. But,
oh, that's right.
But yeah, that's funny. I'm moderately excited for this. I did not like the last couple very much because they got like too outlandish for me.
Yeah.
The characters became too superhero-y, where they're like punching cargo containers and denting them, and I'm like, come on, I didn't break that guy's hand. Or driving vehicles head on into each other and just getting
surviving?
Out. Yeah, not just surviving, getting out and then having fist fights. Come on. But they're a lot of fun to watch. So, and this one looks like, oh my God, Walt.
He has feelings about it too.
Yeah, he's got an attitude about Vin Diesel. I know. Go lie down. Yeah, this one I think looks like they're like wrapping things up in it, and it looks like it'll be fun. And Brie Larson's in it now. I like Brie Larson. So.
Yeah, I was surprised to see Brie Larson.
I can't tell if she's a good guy or a bad guy. I think she's a bad guy.
I think so too.
I don't know. We'll see. I feel like do they always introduce white women as bad guys in those films?
Well, yeah, there was, was Gina Carano in one of them?
She was.
And didn't she fight that other lady boxer?
Oh, Ronda Rousey?
Yep.
Does that happen in Fast and Furious? I can't remember.
I feel like it happened in the last, not the Hobbs and Shaw, but the one previously.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, I know Charlize Theron she's a bad guy. Helen Mirren is introduced as a bad guy. The sister or the daughter of Helen Mirren's character is initially introduced sort of as a bad guy. But then you've got like the other girls. So there's Michelle Rodriguez, not white. She's a good guy. uh, what's her name from Game of Thrones? She played Miss Sandy on Game of Thrones. She plays Ramsay in the Fast and Furious movies.
Oh, I don't know who that is.
Natalie something.
Stormer?
No. Now we got to look it up because I. What would be faster? Fast 9. I'm like, is that faster than Game of Thrones? Natalie Emmanuel.
No.
Yeah. So she's a good guy. Not white. I guess there was like a Hispanic woman too. I guess the what's her name? She's Israeli. Wonder Woman. Why can't I think of Wonder Woman's name?
Oh.
Are you having trouble too all of a sudden?
Yes.
Yeah, what happened? What's wrong with our brains?
Gal Gadot.
Gal Gadot. Yeah, interesting. So, I don't know.
She's a good guy.
She's a good guy.
Mm-hmm.
Israeli.
Jordana Brewster is a good guy.
Yeah, but she's from there. She's in there from the beginning.
True.
So we can exclude her. I feel like.
Okay.
Anyways, I don't know. Just a weird thought that popped into my brain. Anyways, so we're gonna see Fast X, and I'm excited.
Yay!
We're gonna. Man, I really hope we see a car blow up.
What? I don't think those ever happen.
Like, what could they do to a car that they haven't done yet?
It would suddenly become a Transformer.
Oh, they just like turn it into Transformer. That is owned by Universal.
Hey.
Oh my gosh. I could
Crossover.
be into that if it tied into the new Transformers Rise of the Beasts.
Right?
And then it turns out that these Fast movies all take place in the 90s, I think. The new movie takes place in the 90s.
Oh, yeah.
So,
except for the cell phones. That's the only.
Except for the cell phones. That's true. That's true. All right, moving on. Speaking of Transformers,
Hey.
Rise of the Beast. I wasn't very interested in this movie until we saw this new preview for it, and now I'm more knowing that it takes place before the other Transformer movies. I'm more interested. Mm-hmm. It seems like I think it takes place after Bumblebee, which I thought was fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you see Bumblebee?
I have legitimately never seen a Transformers movie.
Oh, it's a lot of like metal smacking metal, like a lot of like metal crashing into metal.
Oh.
Because they're giant robots.
Yes.
They're fun. The first like couple are better than the others, but Bumblebee by far is the best. And you don't really have to have any knowledge about Transformers because it takes place before the Transformer movies.
Okay.
It's weird how they go off the rails because they have really good casts, like John Turturro's in them, and then like the later ones that are really bad, like Anthony Hopkins is in one of them. And it's like, what? Yeah.
There was something in his contract that made him have to do it.
I guess, yeah. Maybe he had to deal with Universal. That darn Meet Joe Black contract he had.
Oh.
Yeah, so I'm kind of interested in Transform. How are you feeling about this? I mean, you've never seen one, or had it seems like
I've never seen one. I saw the cartoons when I was a kid, and I had friends who had the toys, but I'd never seen this particular franchise. And I will say, it is intriguing to me. I would be interested in seeing it.
All right, maybe you can come over and we'll watch Bumblebee and see what you think.
Okay. That sounds great.
Yeah. Next up, Elemental. The Disney Pixar movie.
Oh yeah.
Which I think we've talked about before. I was like very meh about, and now I'm maybe a little bit more interested in it now that I've seen this trailer. Although it wasn't surprising in any way.
Right.
The premise of the movie just feels kind of been there, done that, but
yeah, a little recycled story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Recycled water. Yeah, no, I think it looks all right. I mean, they have such a good track record. It's sort of hard to be like, well, I'm not going to go see this movie.
Right.
You know?
It's still worth a chance.
Yeah. Okay. The next one I'm really excited to talk about because it's the most surprising trailer, and I almost am not sure if we should spoil what happens at the end of this trailer to explain what the movie really is. But it's called Haunting in Venice. And I'd seen this trailer like a week prior to seeing it in the theater. And I remember when I saw it and the ending happened, Desi and I both went, "Wait, what?" Do you remember which trailer I'm talking about?
I do.
Do you remember what happened at the end that like sort of was like, "Oh, that's what this movie actually is"?
I don't.
Oh, you don't? Okay, so I'm just going to spoil the trailer. So if you haven't seen it, pause the episode, go watch the Haunting in Venice trailer, and come back. It's a Hercule Poirot story.
Oh, yes.
And I was like, I did not see that coming in the trailer. I'm not familiar. Is that a famous Poirot story? I've never heard of it.
I have not heard of that particular Poirot story, but
because it's like
I'm super excited.
It's like properly moody and spooky, and you get this like insidious like Conjuring vibe out of it. And then at the end of the trailer, they reveal it's Poirot, and I was like, "Wait, what? What is going on?" So I'm quite excited for that.
Likewise, it has a really great cast too.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I don't think those Poirot movies have done very well. Money wise, but they keep making them, which makes me think like Kenneth Branagh must have like a pretty strong hand, or maybe he's funding them or something. I don't know. But like, I was thinking about that. Like, these movies aren't doing very well, but they seem to keep getting really good actors for them, and like all three of them. And then I started thinking about it, going, you know what though? If I was, because I dabbled in the performing arts when I was a youngster, and if I was still an actor, that would be something that I'd be like, this is like the kind of thing that you always want to do, in theater, is you want to be a part of a murder mystery like this, like a Poirot story.
Yeah.
And so like the opportunities to do something like this are so few and far between that it probably attracts them, just for the ability to do something like classic.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. That's just my thought. If Kenneth Branagh called you up and said, "Hey, I want you to be in the next Poirot movie," would you do it?
Yeah.
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 Absolutely.
Don't be dumb. All right. So the last one we got was The Marvels, which is the sequel to Captain Marvel. What do you think? How are you feeling about it?
I'm very excited.
Me too.
I am so excited to watch it and experience it and laugh and maybe cry. I'm just super excited for it. The moment it popped on, I became giddy.
Yeah. Had you seen the trailer already?
No.
Oh, okay. So that's great that you got to see it for the first time in the theater.
I completely forgot about the Marvels, and Jeff had talked about it, I don't know, a year or so ago, and I thought, okay, that's cool. I don't really know what to expect, and after watching that preview, I'm stoked.
Iman Vellani is everything I want out of an actress in a Marvel production. She is Kamala Khan. Like, she's so, like, it's kind of like Tom Holland. Like, she's got that kind of Tom Holland vibe, that like innocence and fun, joyous thing. But like, I think that partially stems from really loving and caring about the character and like appreciating being a part of this Marvel universe in a way that like a lot of other people don't really think about. They cast, I'm sure Chris Pratt and Robert Downey Jr. and stuff, they're all like super honored or super pleased for the paycheck and whatnot, but like they weren't exactly struggling,
Right.
Whereas like, these young actors are like getting this real opportunity, and they're making the absolute most of those opportunities.
Oh yeah.
And she's so good. She's so good.
She's so natural. It's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah. There's a moment in the trailer where she sees Goose, the Flurkin, being a Flurkin. And she's just like, oh my God. And I just, every time I see that trailer, it kills me every time she does it. All right. So that's it for the trailers. We get to talk about this movie, Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
Volume 3. Here's the quick synopsis. This is your warning, spoilers. If you haven't seen the movie, please don't. I don't want to say don't listen to the podcast, but don't. Go see the movie and then come back and listen to the podcast. But we will give you the quick whether we liked it right at the top. Still reeling from the loss of Gamora, Peter Quill rallies his team to defend the universe and one of their own, a mission that could mean the end of the Guardians if not successful. So the question, as always, did you enjoy this film?
I did.
Me too. It's like, is she gonna say anything else? Okay, here's a follow-up question.
Yes.
Did you cry in this film?
Okay. I'm going to preface this with, from now on, I need to make sure that I eat something before we go to see the movie. And if I don't, my snack choice needs to be much better than it was.
Okay.
Because I decided to randomly buy dried cauliflower bites with fake cheddar, and it was terrible.
Oh,
and
no.
so I was a little hungry the whole time, and I did not cry.
You didn't cry.
I did not. I was not moved, and I was looking around, and the woman sitting next to me was crying, and I look over, and Jeff is crying.
I was wondering if
is
Jeff cried.
something wrong with me?
And I was
Well, he
crying.
cried on multiple occasions.
Same.
And I'm just like,
Same. I cried a couple times. Desi was like, because when she cries in a movie, she cries hard. So she was like almost sobbing.
Oh.
She had there was some scenes that were really, really hard on her. But in a good way, like they did their job. But we'll get to the tears in just a little bit. What you want to talk about? Maybe just some things that you liked about the movie, or things you didn't like about the movie.
I did like a lot about it. I really loved some of the cameos. When they were, I mean, it's toward the end, but suddenly, Miriam Shore pops up.
Miriam Shore.
I don't know if you know who that is. She
No.
played Recorder Vim. She was one of the people trying to say, like, no, don't let us crash.
Oh, okay.
And she is, my first introduction to her was in Hedwig and the Angry Inch. She played Yitzhak.
Okay.
And then she's also, she was on the show Younger, which I was a fan of. One of those silly shows. But I was really delighted to see her. So I just, like, she's a big theater actor and, like, big on Broadway. So I'm like, yeah, Broadway represent. But I loved the backstory of Rocket.
Yes. Yeah. We'll talk about that again, and just we'll get to Rocket in a minute. But
Sure.
Since you were on the topic of cameos, I really liked Jennifer Holland had a cameo in this, who most people will know her from Peacemaker. She's the lead agent in Peacemaker. She plays what is her character's name? Amelia. I can't remember her like agent something, but she's also James Gunn's wife.
Yes.
And I almost didn't recognize her at first. But then I was like, oh, I think that might be James Gunn's wife. And then later they, after she's been shot and she's eating the fruit, while I guess they're discussing what to do next, the bad guys or whatever. And she's eating the fruit. I was like, oh yeah, that's her. That's pretty cool. Also that fruit, I feel like is a reference to Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, which There's a moment they've captured Nebula at the very beginning of the film, and they're holding her, and she's like, "Can I have that thing or whatever it is?" And they're like, "It's not ripe." And she tries to get it multiple times. They're like, "It's not ripe." They've made references to it not being ripe, and then later Nebula gets it finally, and she takes a bite in it, and she spits it out because she's like, "It's not ripe." And then here's Jennifer Holland in this film eating one, which I thought was kind of funny.
Sing.
Okay, well, we could talk about Rocket if you want. I mean, this is Rocket's story, really.
Yeah.
Which is one of those things that when they first started doing these and they signed Bradley Cooper and they were, in negotiations with him, like James Gunn told them, like, this is the plan. We're going to eventually, like, this is all going to lead to telling Rocket's story. And he was never sure that James Gunn was actually going to do it. And then he got the script and he did. Yes. Which is pretty cool. Linda Cardellini.
Yes. In
this, I saw her name in the credits and I got so excited because I was like, "Oh my god, why is Hawkeye's wife going to be in this?" Like, I was like, my brain started running through. I was like, I kind of wish I hadn't seen that her name was in it, and then it turns out she played Lila.
Yeah.
Which I didn't catch during the film. I didn't realize till after.
Yeah. Likewise.
Which
I knew the voice sounded familiar.
Yeah.
And like calming.
Yep.
I'm like, who is that voice? But I didn't even think to look it up until much later.
Yeah. And Lila is in the comics is like Rocket's love interest.
Oh.
So it's interesting that they didn't really go there. That it was more just like familial.
Mm-hmm.
But that made a lot more sense with it being juxtaposed with the Guardians story. And as Rocket's like having his flashbacks and they're dealing with stuff in their world, James Gunn did this, did the whole, you present one positive thing with one negative thing or one negative thing with one positive thing. So like if something negative was happening to Rocket, then something positive was happening to the Guardians, and if something positive was happening to Rockets and something negative was happening to the Guardians, which I thought was a really nice balance to the film.
Yeah.
But yeah, Rocket's story, we finally learn, why he's scarred and got all the like prosthetics and how he comes to be a talking raccoon, and we meet his friends Lila, Teefs, and Floor, who's not called Floor in the comic. I can't remember what her character's name is in the comic, but it's not Floor. No. And I think Teefs is his name in the comic is like Wally J. Teeth or something like that, or Wally J. Tusk or something like that, like something silly. Yes, we finally get that backstory. We learn sort of the horror of I don't know. I'm actually, it's funny because we've spent time thinking about this, and I still don't even know how to necessarily approach this because, the High Evolutionary is the villain of this film, and it's interesting, you hear actors talk when they play villains, how they talk about how, well, I don't see them as a villain because I see them as justified. Like I dig into why they're doing the thing, and so. And I get it. Like, I get why he's doing it. I don't agree with it. It's kind of like Thanos. Like, I get why Thanos is doing it. I don't agree with it, but
right.
But it's weird to kind of like approach this this guy who's in his mind he's just trying to make everything better, but at the cost of anybody that he could punch down.
At the cost of everyone.
Yeah. So there's an interesting part where Rocket says, "Oh, you can't do a thing," and he corrects him and says "can't," because he's British or whatever. But like that's like philosophically, like that's the whole thing is the idea of telling us that cruelty is justified, like the actions are motivated by duty, right? Which is an Immanuel Kant concept. So it's kind of a I thought it was a kind of a clever way of of sort of like, I don't know, like planting a seed in the audience they don't really realize is a seed.
Right.
Um,
Can I interject for
Yeah.
a moment? And it's about pronunciation.
sure.
Um, I find it interesting that, and granted, Rocky, Rocket's um, accent has been created years ago. It's a little confusing as to if he grew up where he grew up, why in the world would he have a New York accent?
Yeah, I mean, why does the High Evolutionary have a British accent, right? Like, I don't know.
True.
I, I think it's sure. I think it's probably a valid question or like fun to think about, but I don't know that it really matters.
I mean, I know the whole thing is a suspension of disbelief,
Right.
but that was just one little,
Yeah, it's sort of like why did any of the characters talk the way they like?
Yeah.
Like on Xandar in the first Guardians movie, you've got like Glenn Close who has no accent, and then you've got what's his name, Peter Safran, who's got a British accent, and it's like, well, they're from the same place, so like, why is that? You know, I don't know.
true. I mean, I say orange and my mom says orange, so
Yeah, aunt and aunt. Yeah, I mean, yeah, who knows? But I like the origin of his name, which I thought was really
Yes.
really cool. And then let's talk about the elephant in the room that everyone's talking about. Let's get this out of the way. The fact that Rocket, for several films prior to this, has been stealing and bargaining for people's prosthetics.
Oh.
And now it like makes sense, right?
Whoa.
He's like,
I hadn't considered that at all.
Yeah, he's like, oh, I'll get that arm. I'm gonna get that eye.
Oh.
And it's like, and it's sort of this idea that like he has this, raccoons collect things, right? That's the thing that he collects, but also, I think he collects those things because he's prepared to help his friends when they need a part, and we see that in Infinity War, when they pick up Thor, he gives Thor an eye. He's like, you're going to need this. And he gives him an eye that he won in a poker bet. And it's like, oh, that scene to me makes a little bit more sense with this movie now, having seen the background. It's sweet and heartbreaking all at the same time.
So even though he seems like such a cold and closed off kind of guy, he's really quite sensitive.
Yeah. Well, I like that they reference Rocket as being Peter's best friend multiple times, because they sort of have this real antagonistic thing throughout the series, but it's really clear that they love each other. Oh, on the body part thing too, it sort of also solidifies this idea that he's friends with Nebula. Again in Endgame, when she comes back with Tony, when they're rescued at the beginning of Endgame, and they both have lost their families. They sit down on the like steps of the ship, and he reaches out and he holds her hand, and it's just like, oh, here are these two people that have been tortured and experimented on and cobbled together with machinery, like finding this common grief.
Yeah.
And then he makes her a new arm, which is also really cool, because so in the thing that you mentioned you didn't like, which was the holiday special, she gives him the arm that he wanted, which was Bucky's arm, his vibranium arm, as a Christmas gift. Because in Infinity War, he's like, how much for the arm? And then Bucky just walks away and he's like, oh, I'll get that arm. And then Nebula gives it to him as a Christmas present. And it's like, she gives him the Christmas present, and then in this movie, after Christmas, she has a new arm that was gifted to her by Rocket.
Oh.
Which is really cool, kind of cool.
That is cool.
Yeah. James Gunn's really good at like tying these things together,
Yes. This is true.
Any other things that you liked or didn't like, things that stuck out to you?
Well, this requires a big spoiler.
Okay, big spoiler.
Big spoiler. Um, I loved that they freed all of the animals and creatures that had been uh, scientific
Yep.
projects. I loved that they saved them from the ship so that they wouldn't all die. And like,
Yeah.
that was super important to Rocket, and they made it happen.
Yep.
And then I was super confused by Chris Pratt floating in space.
Yeah.
He turns to ice and somehow survives.
So, okay, so I actually have a possible explanation for that.
Go on.
So it's revealed in Guardians of the Galaxy 2 that he's part celestial, which is why
Right.
he and Mantis but so he in theory gives up being a celestial, and so like the thing that he does in the climax to defeat his father, Ego the Living Planet, supposedly, according to Ego, would destroy any celestial part of his DNA. But we don't know. We don't know that that's true.
Right.
And B, I don't know. I don't know if that's all that Peter is. So
Right.
I think there's probably something more about Peter than just being human. I don't think he's 100% human,
Yeah.
regardless of whatever Ego says at the end of that movie.
Yeah. Now that I think about it, my beef with that part was, well, there's that earlier when it's Mantis and Dave Bautista and another character are they're on the ship and it's getting higher and higher and they're having trouble breathing.
Yeah,
But that, like, Peter was never part of that group.
correct.
It was the other people. But if Mantis is part, what is it, ethereal?
Celestial.
Celestial.
Yeah.
If Mantis is part celestial, then why would she have had that reaction?
Well, I mean,
And anyway,
Yeah,
getting that high up.
so the argument would be that one, they might be different things happening to their bodies, so that's one thing. The other is that like mutated DNA works differently for different things, right? So like just because you have one mutation that works one way doesn't mean it's always going to work that way. So like she may have gotten other ability, like she clearly has other abilities that he doesn't have. Right. So, like, I don't know if Mantis could hold an Infinity Stone, right? But we see Peter do that with the help of his friends. But we see Peter do that in the first Guardians of the Galaxy film.
Right.
But I don't know if Mantis could do that. I sort of suspect she would burn up if she tried to hold an Infinity Stone.
Oh, yeah.
So, so like that would be my. I mean, you raise a valid question, right?
Yeah.
But we don't have the answer, and it's one of those things where like we may never have the answer. It's kind of like, well, how did the Big Bang happen? Like we don't have the answer to that. Like
Right.
we know this thing happened, but we don't know how, and we may never know. So, but and it's totally possible that some comic writer or James Gunn or somebody at Marvel can answer that question. But
James Gunn, where are you? We need
right.
answers.
Right. I would say for for us that's my best guess.
Yeah.
And I feel like it makes enough sense to make me be okay with everything that happens in the film.
Yeah.
Any new characters jump out at you? Like this is my favorite of the new characters. Okay, who's that?
That would be Adam Warlock.
Oh, you love Adam Warlock. Oh, it's so interesting.
My gosh. The first time I was ever introduced to Will Poulter was in We're the Millers, where he played a dumb, bumbling dum-dum.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until years later that I learned he wasn't American.
Yeah, I didn't even know.
And I enjoyed how this character, the Adam Warlock character, Like at one point took himself very seriously, and then you find out, oh no, he's a funny character.
He's a child.
Fun.
Yeah.
Like the group hug thing.
Yeah.
That was so great.
Yeah, I agree. Well, and it's interesting too because in the comic he's not a dum dum. He's
right.
He's like Space Jesus in the comic book. So like that's how they defeat Thanos is with the help of Adam Warlock.
Oh.
Yeah. So.
Wow.
So this is definitely a different take on Adam Warlock, but I think I prefer this over the comic version, to be honest.
I love it. I honestly hope he gets his own spin-off of some sort.
Yeah. I hope he comes back. I hope we see a lot of people come back. I mean, there's definitely the door is open.
I mean, was this our first introduction to Adam Warlock? I don't remember him from Okay.
So they piss off.
Was then this a really short cameo by Elizabeth Debicki?
So she has, I would say, probably more so of a cameo in Volume 2. Okay. At the very beginning of the movie, they're doing a job for the Sovereign, which is to get these batteries, and they go and get the batteries and they take them to the Sovereign and deliver them, and the Sovereign are like super like proper, and you have to be really careful with what you say, and you can't like be sarcastic with them. And Rocket lets it's like sort of insults them, and then I think Drax or somebody lets it slip that they that Rocket kept some of the batteries instead of delivering them all because they're like super valuable,
right?
And they're shiny, and he's a raccoon. And so the Sovereign go on this like quest to like find the Guardians and destroy them, and that's like a subplot in Volume 2, and they fail. And so at the very end in the post credits, you see Elizabeth Debicki, the Sovereign Queen, I can't remember her name, but and she's like she's basically explaining how she's hatching a plan, and they show this cocoon, and she's like, I'm gonna call him Adam. And that's like the post-credit thing was the introduction of that they're going to bring in Adam Warlock. And so a lot of people, I think, thought that they were going to introduce Adam Warlock in like Infinity War or something. Of course, I'm getting notifications which are making noise on my computer. And then they didn't introduce him. But do you know why she was cast in that role?
Because she's over 6 feet?
Yeah, you knew that.
Really?
Yeah, that's exactly why. Yeah.
She came into Proof when I worked there.
Oh, okay.
She's very tall.
Yeah, that's why they cast her in that role. So that's funny. It's interesting that they ended up being also creations of the High Evolutionary, because I don't think the Sovereign are really a thing in the comics. I think that's created for the films, and then they just worked the Adam Warlock thing into that.
Oh, cool.
I could be wrong. I'm not like the cosmic part of Marvel, of the Marvel universe. Like cosmic and mutants are not really my area. But I think that's correct. But yeah, anyways, I'll tell you who my favorite of the new characters was. Sort of a new character. I guess technically not new, but Cosmo.
The dog?
The dog. Cosmo. First of all, changing Cosmo to a woman was fucking genius.
What do you mean?
So Cosmo in the comics is a boy.
Oh.
And so changing, and I think in like, whenever you see Cosmo in like cartoons and stuff, is always a boy. So I like that they changed Cosmo to a girl. They chose, I don't know how to say her name, Maria Bakalova.
Yes.
I really, really like her as an actress. I think she's really, really funny. I think she's got great timing, and like the like joy and innocence she brought to that character was so fantastic. All the stuff with like Take It Back, like all that stuff, like right. I loved every second of it. I wish there would have been more, but she had one of, if not my favorite line in the film, and it was in the post credits.
Oh,
and they, I thought it was such a genius moment on James Gunn's part as a writer. so they're sitting around talking about, they're like, the new Guardians are going to go on this mission, which, by the way, one of the little girl is Phyla Vell, who, that character becomes Captain Marvel eventually in the comics.
Oh.
Yeah, kind of cool. Like a neat little throw in. So Desi thought they called her Lila, and she was like, oh, they named her after Lila. I was like, well, turns out it's Phyla. But the same as they're planning, like, whatever it is they're going to do, whatever they have to stop. What is it, like a bunch of animals or something, right? That are like stampeding. And so they're talking about songs and stuff. And then Rocket's like, Kraglin's like, I can handle this on my own. And Rocket's like, no, we got to do this together. And Cosmo looks and says something to the effect of, on your left, Captain.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, fucking yes! Such a great
that was
moment.
Such a wonderful insert.
Yeah.
Truly.
Yeah. Made me so happy. I'm trying to think. Oh, one other big thing we get to be excited about. This is the first Marvel film that says fuck.
I know.
So
I was shocked.
Crazy, but of course it happened in a James Gunn movie.
Mm-hmm.
So that whole sequence was great. The car door. And then we got a cool like post credit thing, basically telling us that Star-Lord's still going to be a thing. Like maybe this is the last Guardians film, but Star-Lord's going to be around, which has all sort of interesting implications to it, I think. Yeah, so Star-Lord left the Guardians for a while in the like 2010s, like around like I want to say like 2013ish or something, right around there. Maybe a little earlier, maybe a little later. I'm not sure. And he had his own book, and you want to guess what that book was called?
What was it called?
Well, okay, so at the end, the credit said, "The legendary Star-Lord will return," and his book was called Legendary Star-Lord.
Star-Lord.
And that book was one of the lead-ins to Secret Wars, which we know is the end of Phase 6. So it's interesting that they, one, said Legendary Star-Lord, and two, there's two movies that have been announced that happened before Secret Wars.
Oh.
So I'm wondering if that's going to be a Star-Lord movie. But the other thing is that in that book, he ends up in a new relationship with a one Miss Kitty Pryde, who's an X-Man.
What?
So, like, could this be an implication that they're finally setting up more X-Men? I mean, they've kind of already teased X-Men a couple times, but
yeah.
But like, is this them kind of like putting the wheels in motion?
I hope so. I actually really do enjoy the X-Men movies.
Yeah. I can't get into the comics, but I always like the movies.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, so exciting things on the horizons maybe for Marvel. We have Secret Invasion series coming up next month on Disney Plus. We're gonna have What If Volume 2 coming out, I think sometime in the summertime, and then we're gonna have the Marvels in like November. So things are finally moving. I feel like it's been a little like, hey, we're spinning our wheels a little bit to get everything going, but now they're going.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, this movie was. No, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, hopefully they have the opportunity to be made.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Well, so they're certainly not writing them right now. Well,
right.
So the Daredevil show that's coming out, got shut down yesterday.
Oh no!
Because of the picketing
on hiatus.
But you know what? It's fine.
Yeah,
it's fine. We'll wait. It's okay.
It's good. It's worth waiting for.
Yeah, I'm all right with it. I want my Daredevil, but I'm okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna say this movie is, I think. No, not even I think. I know this is my favorite of the Guardians films.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I am very happy that toward the end they explained, okay, this is a minor spoiler. I mean, if you've listened this far,
Yeah, we've
you
already
better
gone
have
there.
seen the movie.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that they, in a way, explained why there were songs that weren't just from the 80s.
Yes, how they were sort of like, hey, we're moving away from this old thing and toward this new unknown thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, this is a newer song. Why is this in this movie? And I was getting a little hangry about it. And
Angry.
then when the iPod popped up saying like, oh, here's the movies from the 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s, and 2020s.
Yeah.
I was relieved, but I'd love to know where that iPod came from.
It was given to him by it was left to him by Yondu in this at the end of the second movie. They were like, "Oh, Yondu left this for you," because Yondu dies at the end of the film, right?
Yeah.
Thank
you.
And they're like, "Hey, Yondu left this for you. It can hold 360 songs or something like that." And he's like, "Whoa, that's so many songs." So that's where the Zune. It's a Zune, by the way. That's where the Zune comes from. Yeah.
Okay.
The Microsoft Zune, which is funny. So speaking of songs, a couple things. I like that all of the music in it was diegetic, except for obviously the score isn't, and then obviously the credits, like what's going on in the credits, is not part of it. So I like that, and then I also. Have you seen? There's a clip of, I don't know if her name is Florence, but the woman from Florence and the Machine.
Yeah, her name is Florence.
Is her name Florence? Okay,
Yes.
I don't know music very well, so or musicians. So there's a clip on like TikTok of it's just her, so you don't see the screen, and it's just her watching her song being played at the end of the film.
Oh,
And she's crying with like tears of joy. It's beautiful. It's really, really sweet to watch. You should look it up.
I'll have to. That sounds so delightful.
I think her handle is just Florence or something.
Yeah. I'll have to check that out.
There was one other thing that I thought was a genius piece of writing too, which was something they repeated several times in the film, which was, it's a trap. No, it's a face-off.
Yes.
And then what did they frickin' do to him at the end of the movie? To the High Evolutionary. They took his face off.
They did.
How freaking genius is that?
Oh my gosh.
James Gunn. Smart guy. So
clever.
We're going to miss him from Marvel, but I'm glad he's doing DC.
Oh yeah.
I'm excited to see his Superman. I think it's going to be the Superman we've been wanting for decades.
Oh, thank goodness. I
saw him doing a quote. They were asking him like, what do you want people to take away from this film? And it was like, that's something I'd seen said like, oh yeah, Superman's in safe hands with him. And his response was, I hope you watch the movie and then you look over at the person next to you and you love them a little bit more.
Oh.
And I was like, oh my God.
Gosh.
It's like maybe the perfect answer any filmmaker could give. So.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's so sweet.
Yeah.
You know what one of my other favorite parts of this movie was?
What's that? I
love you guys.
Oh, okay. So that's an interesting one that people are sort of talking about too. So, I'm sure maybe you know, but that's not Groot learning to speak.
What? Oh, I have theories in my brain.
I can tell you. Yeah, you go ahead and tell me your theory, and I'll tell you if you're right and what it is. If not,
I have a theory that now the audience is so close with Groot that we can understand his "I am Groot" phrase.
We as the audience have become part of the family.
Oh, that makes me love it even more.
Yeah, it's very sweet.
That was a delightful surprise.
Yeah. I agree. All right. I think we should end it there on the sweet notes. And we will be back soon with something that is fast and furious. Until then, everybody, bon cinema.